Well, good afternoon, my beautiful coffee beans. If you don't know who I am, I'm Bullhorn Betty. I cover true crime. I cover true crime on this platform as well as many other platforms known to you. So type in Bullhorn Betty and sub up, right? So we've been covering several cases. We covered several cases this morning. I came on here for just a few minutes earlier to let you guys know we were going live, and I promised that after the live show, I would come back here and give you guys a recap of the show. From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news. I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work, we will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you, God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims. Now, this is pretty interesting because I'm not, nor have I ever heard of Andrew or Tristan. I have no idea who they are. I hear that they are well-known content creators or influencers, social media influencers. They were obviously a big deal. They were hired to do, or at least Andrew was hired to do this bare knuckle like emceeing event in Miami. And then I learned a little more about their story because he was arrested as he was going to that event. And some of the charges are really grotesque. They're really, like, real bad. And they're not just from here. I don't even think he has any charges from the United States. They're all from overseas. And that's when I realized that these were Romanian-American dual citizenship people. And they've been on house arrest since 2022 in Romania. And something happened where the courts decided to lift their travel restriction in Romania, and they hopped and boarded on a private jet and came to Miami or came to Florida. I don't know if they flew specifically into Miami. I think they did, but I'm not sure. And they've been here ever since. Well, the UK has decided to extradite them. And that's why both Tristan and Andrew were arrested yesterday in Miami. And the allegations of, SAR, just a lot of terrible things going on. But the most problematic was the extreme porn and the CSAM. I looked up the definition of extreme porn, and the definition is pretty... It's pretty bad, when you read it. I'm not going to read the definition here, but it is like right up there with like snuffs and stuff like that. I mean, it's bad. But anyways, that's what they're accused of doing. I do believe that they have evidence to prove at least some of this stuff. These guys are bad dudes. So we'll see how it works out in the court systems in the UK. Again, they are, from my understanding, they do have some type of citizenship here. I'm not understanding it. Maybe a dual citizenship. Again, they were Romanian citizens and were on house arrest in Romania. before fleeing to the U.S., and they've been here ever since up until this extradition. So it looks like the United States is going to cooperate with the UK extradition in this case. And then we move over to Nancy Guthrie. Now, Nancy Guthrie, she's the 84-year-old grandmother ripped out of her bed in the middle of the night by a masked man that had a firearm on the front side of his pants. So it is very significant. Moreover, there was a lot of blood, not a significant, not life or death amount of blood, but a significant amount of blood right there on the outside of that front door that appeared to be dripping from a mouth, a nose, or something of that nature. And that blood went, the DNA came back to be Nancy Guthrie, the victim of this crime. They still have her classified as abduction for ransom. It's not even a no-body homicide classification right now, but nobody knows who the masked assailant is, allegedly. We've never even had law enforcement indicate the mode of how they believe Miss Guthrie was transported, which most of us believe it was by vehicle. But we don't even have any idea of what that vehicle may look like or what to be on the lookout for. So how can we help? I really don't know. But I do know that Chris Nanos is a criminal. The sheriff of Pima County, in my opinion, and actually not even an opinion, just because he's never been charged with the crime, he's been charged with the crime, he's never been convicted of the crime, doesn't mean he didn't do it. And then we went over, if many of you guys don't know who Chris McDonough is, he's the director of the Cold Case Foundation, a nonprofit organization that has a lot of detective and law enforcement agents that make up this Cold Case Foundation. Him and his wife Karen looked into the details of the Rico, like why is there the hostility here between Chris Nanos and the FBI? And so Karen and Chris McDonough decided to investigate that aspect, and they found this Rico investigation where the right-hand man of Chris Nanos was charged. Why they didn't charge Chris Nanos, I have no idea, but it was based on $500,000 disappearing over a period of time, you know? And again, his right-hand man goes to jail, but he does not, even though it sounds like he was all involved in every bit of it. And it could have been proven. So I don't know. It just seems like no matter what Chris Nanos does, he escapes responsibility. He's never transparent, nor does he ever take accountability, even when he's caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He lost his job, 4 decades ago in El Paso, Texas, for bludgeoning a cuffed suspect and sending him to the ICU. The guy almost lost his life. He was never held accountable for that, even though they knew he did it. He was never held accountable for this $500,000 that's missing, and it does appear he may have had some contribution to why that's missing. And he's the one that's running the investigation with Miss Nancy Guthrie. And from my understanding, the reason why the department is in such peril is because after this last election in 2024, he basically put his opponent on house arrest. And when he won the election by a mere 4 under 500 votes, he ended up firing or, ostracizing everybody that was for his opponent. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in right now, according to the reporting from Karen and Chris McDonough. Again, she's an investigative journalist, a retired investigative journalist, and Chris McDonough is a retired homicide detective. So you're talking about very well-known people in this true crime genre and in this true crime world that are highly respected, that are giving these reports about Chris Nanos and this investigation. And he further confirmed that the man running this investigation, the leader of the homicide, has never handled a homicide investigation in his career. How can somebody that's never handled a homicide in their career be a supervisor over the homicide department? That is just some of the findings that Karen and Chris McDonough had found related to Chris Nanos, who I refer to as the criminal sheriff of Pima County. And then we moved to the Bahamas. And if you guys haven't heard about Miss Lynette Hooker, she's the 55-year-old Michigan mom that retired early. She had this bucket list item of living abroad on a sailboat, traveling the world on a yacht, and so she made a promise to herself and set out for that dream. And when she retired, she sold everything with her husband of 25 years, Brian Hooker. He's just a little bit older than her at 59 years old. And they worked on this boat that they purchased in 2023. And right around there is when they set sail for the first time to live abroad. It was supposed to be this exciting adventure for the next chapter of their life as they retired and traveled the world. But shortly after they set sail, it was really, really bad. Something happened aboard that boat where Lynette thought she was going to lose her life. And so she ran home to her mom's house in Florida. And according to her mother, Darlene, she told Ashley Banfield that Brian had put his hands around her neck and squeezed while on top of her, bruising her whole entire backside. Something snapped in her neck, and she was very stiff for a really long time. But that wasn't the most concerning part, Darlene had stated. She said her daughter confided in her that morning as she was packing up to head to her mom's house, Brian was helping her load stuff onto the dock, and he says he wishes he would have finished the job and thrown her overboard. And so this happening a year and a half after those statements, and that's not the first time he made those statements. The family immediately did not believe his story. So when they found out that Lynette was truly missing, Carly and Darlene got on the horn with the Bohemian officials and told them the stories and let them know that Brian was very violent. Carly had dealt with his violence. It wasn't like their violence was all the time. It was like probably most households that deal with domestic violence. It's really good when it's good, but when it gets really bad, it's really bad. And Carly, her daughter, had known Brian since she was 3 years old and described this incident that she remembers witnessing and having to go to court. And this was related to Brian's 12-year-old daughter. And it was of similar circumstances where he put his hand around her neck and squeezed until something happened and he had to go to court for a criminal matter. He was ultimately exonerated of that, but we now know all of this is true. He did these things. And another person that has went without accountability for a really long time up until somebody lost their life. And the reason why I said lost their life is because that's part of the breaking news. We now know that Lynette Hooker made it back to the soulmate. The story about her husband gave about her being on the dinghy and a wave, knocking her off the dinghy and the water sweeping her out to sea was all bogus. They made it back to the soulmate. According to the new information, she lost her life before 8 p.m. She lost her life before 8 p.m., which is what we had figured happened because there was a critical detail, and it came to the flare pistol. The flare pistol is a device on a boat that has a flare in it. So when you have any type of emergency, whether your boat's sinking, you have no power to your boat, you're stuck or stranded in the middle of nowhere, you have a communication source to let somebody know that you're in trouble. And usually people shoot those things up in the air. It makes a bright light and it stays up there for an extended period of time to notify somebody, you know, that people that are searching for these type of things, people are always looking for these types of flares, and boaters know that when they see these flares in the air to immediately start calling for help. So they knew, you know, so that's what this is on, and these are on most every single boat. I don't know if it's a boat requirement or not, but I believe it might be just like the life preservers. You need to have a life preserver for everybody that's on that boat, up to the max occupancy allowed on that boat. So at the end of the day, a witness said that they saw one of these flares being shot horizontally along the side of Soulmate. So we did have some indicators prior to this recent development that they most likely made it back to the Soulmate. But one of the interesting things is we're hearing they believe she died before 8 p.m. And that's quite a new development and a shocking development with, you know, because it has almost a time slot to it. And they don't have the body. She's never been found. So how would they know when she could have possibly died or when she did die? And I believe it's because of the cameras. This boat has a lot of cameras. It has cameras in the cockpit going different angles, one going this way and one going back that way, so you can see the entire cockpit and everybody in it. They also have this $30,000 flare, I think is what it's called, a flare system, and it's a thermal imaging camera. But the interesting thing is that it follows you, so it follows the heat source. So if anybody's approaching that boat, it will notify. I think it even has a sound inside the boat, but it notifies or gives an alert to everybody that's hooked up to its phone. So if somebody's approaching that boat, it will give them, and it captures everything, including thermal imaging. So it's a state-of-the-art piece of equipment, a $30,000 piece of equipment on that boat that I'm absolutely confident he did not dismantle before this altercation between them. Because, again, I don't think he was anticipating this altercation to happen, even though it's always common when they go out and especially him, and he gets drunk, he uses Lynette as a punching bag. And that is a well known to the family, although not well documented in public records. It is well known to the family. So I do believe out of all these cases, we're going to get to the resolution of Lynette's case sooner than any of these other cases we're covering, including Miss Nancy Guthrie. Now, Nolan WELLS is a different story altogether. Nolan WELLS is out of Mississippi. He went to this, oh gosh gracious, why am I forgetting the name of it? Anyways, it's this island that many people go to hang out and party and stuff like that. Well, but it's also known for its riptides, which is another element to this case. But Nolan, for the 4th of July, decided to go and hang out with his buds. And I'm sure those buds were on his football team and whatever the case may be. I'm not going to get into this case as a racially motivated case. I just don't believe it's racially motivated. Even if something did happen out there, I don't believe the color of his skin had anything to do with it. I understand why the family is getting Al Sharpton and that attorney, what is his name? Jeffrey Crump, I think is what his name is. I may have his first name wrong. But the attorney there, I understand exactly why they're getting them involved. And I absolutely agree to get, that they should get them involved. You use the resources that you can get your hands on at the time. And at the end of the day, the history in Mississippi is not the best, just like the South. Our Southern history is not the best in stuff. I'm glad we've come a long way to where we are today. But at the end of the day, I don't think that that's what we're dealing with here. He had white friends, and his friends loved him. even if there was an altercation, even if they were partying out there and he lost his life and they didn't know what to do and left him behind, either way, they didn't do it because he was black, okay? This is not a racism. Teenagers do stupid shit. And sometimes that stupid shit results in a death, in a fatality. And I think that might be what we're dealing with here. I guess we really won't know until we learn more about it. And, his family is still grieving this loss. I mean, he was a good boy. He had a good family. He had a good life. He had a good future. I can't imagine being his mom and dad and everything being so normal, and then they're finding out their child's missing, and then 2 days later, they're finding out their heart is ripped from their... I can't imagine that feeling. And as a parent, you want to know without a doubt in your mind that nothing happened to your child. That there was that your child was not murdered, right? You want to make sure your child was not murdered. And that's where they're at right now. And those types of things cost a lot of money. Challenging, getting those things, getting attorneys, getting records. You're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to have these type of legal resources. It's hard when you got to fight a government to find out what's going on. And just like any other parent, you're going to fight with any resource you have to get those things done. It is very expensive to have a funeral. We got Tyler Perry paying for this young man's funeral. We've got Colin Kaepernick paying for his independent autopsy. So Al Sharpton and Crump are bringing in real resources for this family that they would not normally have to find out what happened to their son. So I'm never going to fault a parent for using whatever leverage, whatever resource they have to get down to the bottom of what happened to their child. But we know something happened. Children don't leave friends behind, okay? I'm sorry. There's just a code. And we just had a young lady in Kentucky, a teenage girl, 18-something, left behind by her friends as well. And she wound up dead. So kids do stupid stuff all the time, and people lose their life as a result of it. And sometimes it's one of their friends' faults. For example, I went to school with two friends. They were best friends. One of the friends was driving drunk. They got into a wreck. He killed his best friend. He went and served 10 years of his life behind bars, and he's never gotten over the fact because that was his best friend. Did he intend to do it? No. Did he do it? Yes. And these are some of the things that do happen. But do I think that race had anything to do with it? I'm sorry. I just don't. And if that's what they've got to scream or allege to get answers to their son's case, in all fairness, I'm not going to fault them for it. And I don't think the world should either. I feel bad because we're learning the mom's getting, horrible messages. No matter how you look at this, a mom has lost her son. And I can't imagine what creature, what monster could send a mother that just lost her son and just wants answers horrible letters. That just, it's awful, folks. How do you do that? How do you justify? How in your sick mind do you justify doing something like that to a mother that's just lost her son? I think that is just absolutely awful. So that's kind of the round out that we had today on the Bullhorn Betty channel. That's kind of the sentiments of how that show went. So if you guys would like to sub up to the YT, to the Bullhorn Betty show, please consider subbing up there. I will always try to come back here and give you guys updates or recaps of that show. I am trying to incorporate stuff here. I'm just not going to be on here to sell stuff, okay? That is not my thing. That's not what I use TikTok for. I use TikTok to get cases like this out so people have the information that they need. It's a great source to get in front of a lot of people to talk about major breaking cases, and it seems like TikTok has changed their platform where they just want you to sell, sell, sell. So the only thing I'm selling is justice, and if that's what you like, please hit that sub up button for this show. I'm Bullhorn Betty. Again, I cover true crime. This is 4 stories, 4 mysteries, and still no answers. So we continue to fight for these victims. We've got more stories than just these 4. We could literally go on for days, weeks, months, and including years, which I've been on these platforms now for years. There is not a day that goes by that crime doesn't happen in my community and in yours. So please be vigilant out there. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And until next time, please be safe, but more importantly, kind to one another. Bye, guys. We'll see you soon.